If we listen deeply to the past, if we come to better understand who we've been, if we remember our birth and our ancestors and the earth, if we pay attention to those who have gone before, and in these days, maybe particularly to those who have built, sustained, and transformed this congregation, how does that impact who we are now and even change who we hope to become? I'm a student of something called process theology. Its basic premise is that nothing is stagnant. Things are always evolving or becoming. And it teaches what we become is dependent in large part on what has gone before us. But it also holds that we're impacted by both nature and nurture, both what we are as individuals and how we're influenced by all that surrounds us in the now. And in addition, process theology or process thought teaches that we are formed by the vision or the call of that which lures us forward into the future. What we are is because of all of this. Our past, our now, and whatever is calling us forward. I'd like to share with you a story that pretty perfectly demonstrates process thought. It's called Because. It was written by Mo Willems and illustrated by Amber Wren. And this story will reveal, if you were waiting on pins and needles, why it is that Mike and Amos played a Schubert piece at the beginning of our assembly. So here we go. Because a man named Ludwig wrote beautiful music, a man named Franz Schubert was inspired to write his own. Because many years later, people wanted to hear Franz's beautiful music, they formed an orchestra. And because a man had practiced since he was a kid, he was asked to join. Now, because a woman had studied night and day, and she too was asked to play, and because many others loved and practiced their instruments, there were enough musicians. Because someone created a poster about Franz's music, tickets were sold. Because the train conductor stopped the train at the Grand Orchestra Hall, the conductor arrived. Because the orchestra librarian had made copies of the score, the orchestra was able to rehearse. Because workers checked the lights and the seats and swept the floors, the grand hall was ready, and because the time had come, the ushers opened the doors. Now, before I tell you what happened because of all those becauses, let's just take a little pause. On Friday night, I heard stories of your becauses, about things that have happened over the years here at the First Unitarian Society of Minneapolis, things that have formed you, things that have caused other things to happen. Some of those things have been joyful memories and happy moments of formation, and others have been difficult, even sad. Like there were specific memories of how FUS responded to 9/11, to the sermon that Reverend Kendall Gibbons gave on that Sunday, and how learning to resist Islamophobia was life-changing for you. Or how being involved in programming for FUS's children and youth has not just been inspiring, but has provided deep meaning because of spending time with them. Things like the Boston Heritage trips, the youth plays and performances, or facilitating Our Whole Lives programming. And about how FUS celebrates the meaning of the changing seasons, not only for your personal meaning making, but also how seasonal celebrations have been a way that you can share this congregation with your non-UU families and friends in ways that have created or repaired connections. Some spoke of how FUS and particular leaders have made it possible for there to be a safe space here for exploring and living into who you truly are. And alongside that, finding within FUS your own tribe and chosen family, a place where you can make long-lasting friendships and enjoy social activities together, things like retreat to the woods and circle dinners. And there were also stories of particular key moments for many individuals, be that projects that they worked on, social justice initiatives, people they made particular connections with, or just hearing inspiring and transformative words weekly. And of course, we know that we are not formed not only by joys and celebrations, but also by losses and sorrows. Hardship and heaviness is just as impactful, sometimes even more so, on our becoming. And in that regard, you shared of the recent loss of not one, not two, but 3 ministers. And also ministers and other staff who have left over the past 15 years or so. And poignantly, some of those losses were felt to be the result of poor processes or the absence of true inclusivity. Those present also expressed sorrow about the members who have left FUS after troubling or negative experiences. And that conversation led to wondering about how welcoming FUS really is and about how difficult it's been to attract diversity of all kinds. It seems many of you are carrying this sorrow around with you, and it creates a longing to learn to be different. And some spoke of deep disappointment that our programming for children and youth has gone through so much change and turmoil over the past decade, and the impact of that on the number of families present here. And there was so much more. And I'm sure that there are more stories as yet unshared about what has shaped you, what has shaped FUS, and where that leaves you in terms of where you want to go. So we're going to spend a few moments in quiet now, picturing our ancestors, or maybe something or someone who has gone before, because of whom you are, or we are. To think on those whose lives and actions made it possible for you to be here as who you are right now. So I invite you to spend a moment with that. Maybe you want to close your eyes and just be still. Think about what those who have gone before loved. And maybe also about what troubled them, what mattered. How did they change you? Can you name what you learned because of them and who they were? And I just invite you to hold these memories in your heart and spend a few quiet moments with it. Be still and remember. Mm-hmm. And now during the next few minutes as music plays, you are invited to come. Different music. Unless you're ready. No. As different music plays, you're invited to come to place a symbol upon the altar of this community. You may have brought a picture or a memento to share. And you'll note that there are already some photos there on the table representing those who've passed recently from FUS. If you haven't brought anything, that's okay. You can take something from the basket to place on the altar. And as you do so, I'll light candles for you. So as you're ready, come. In memory of those who have gone before, we have lit these candles. Their songs lead us on, their dreams shape us, and their light will guide us home. Gathering up all they've left with us and carrying that in our bones, we also light candles on the altar of our hearts. These flames of memory and hope to hearten our struggle and to guide our steps in the path of peace and love. Are you ready now to hear the end of the story? As the story continues, I invite you to notice the ribbon that runs through almost all of the illustrations. When we left the story, an orchestra had been preparing for a concert and the doors had been opened, and here's what happens next. Because someone's uncle caught a cold, someone's aunt had an extra ticket for someone special. Because the usher helped the aunt and her special guest, they found their seats. Because everyone there was there to hear beautiful music, it was quiet. And then, in row C, seat 14, sat the girl with the uncle's ticket. She heard the beautiful music written by the man named Franz, and it changed her. The girl was changed. From that moment on, the girl learned everything she could about music because it fed her. Soon she started to write music too, because like Franz, the young woman had something to share. And over time, the woman became very good because she worked very hard. And one night, her music was discovered because she was also kind of very lucky. And then she was invited to perform her music at the Grand Concert Hall because so many people wanted to hear it. Her composition was dedicated to the uncle in row C, seat 14, because it was his ticket who brought her here. And that night, someone else was changed. That is how it happens. This is how it happens. What comes before and what we experience changes us. It changes who we will become. That ribbon in the illustrations, that string of musical notes, it reminds me of a poem by William Stafford called The Way It Is, or he might as well have said, That's How It Happens. In that poem, he says, there's a thread you follow. It goes among things that change. Stafford then tells us that while we hold it, we can't get lost. Even though we can't stop time's unfolding, that thread gives us something to hold on to. We talk about who we've been, about these things that have impacted us, about those who have gone before, because this helps us to hold on to that thread. And holding on to that thread of becoming makes it possible for us to better understand who we are, and then to reckon with it, and to appreciate it, and to grow from it. Holding on to that thread of becoming also helps us to point ourselves in the direction we want to go. You know, right there in all the stories you told on Friday night about your joys and sorrows are clues about who you want to become. You don't have to look very deeply into your stories to find it. You want to be more connected to each other. You want to celebrate life by coming together with music and food. You want to make this place a place that inspires and engages with youth and children and where we can learn from each other. You want to be more welcoming, more tolerant, less strident, less classist. You want to be in better relationship with one another, appreciating each person's unique ways of being in the world. And you want FUS to be a place of belonging that attracts people from all walks of life so that we might all live lives guided by the values we hold dear. And just as the little girl in this story found her passions because of her experiences, so it is with you and with this congregation. Like her, at some point you found the music that is FUS. And because of how it has changed you, you want to share it with the world that others may be changed. May it be so.